Hey y'all, Gary here with Tennessee Stands. Hey, look, this is going to be the last video I'm going to do regarding HB 1944, but it's really important. There's a few principles that I think are really important to learn from this bill, but there's also a call to action on what's happening. So look, this is the bill, right, that we've all been talking about. Again, that's supposed to remove obscene materials from school. From our public schools. And initially the bill was great because it removed the exception in our criminal code by which, education has been exempt from the law that says you can't provide obscene materials to minors, which is federal law and state law. If an adult provides these materials, these harmful materials to minors, that's a Class A misdemeanor. Subsequent offense would be a Class C felony. So you're going to prison. And that's all we were trying to accomplish, remove the exemption for education, because the argument has been, well, we don't want to get our librarians in trouble and nobody should go to jail. And, some of these materials, we're just teaching our kids how to critically think. It's not really obscene material. We're just giving them tools, right? So we wanted to remove that exemption so that if a school administrator or a teacher or a librarian is caught providing these books to students, some of which are third and fourth graders, y'all. I'm not going to repeat all the things, but you've seen the books that are sitting in our school libraries right now. So we simply wanted that exemption removed. Why? Because wouldn't it be great to pull some of these folks out of schools in handcuffs? That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? And I bet if we pulled them out in handcuffs and sent them to jail, do you think that all the other schools would take out the books? Yes, they would. And that's all we were trying to accomplish. But I want to tell you where we are now, why we think you should vigorously oppose this bill. But I want to bring out a couple of really this is a teaching lesson. A couple of really good constitutional principles that we can learn from it as to what happened. So, how did the bill get amended? That's everybody's question. How and why? Because the original bill, which was just a half page, did the job of getting this material out of schools and holding people accountable with criminal penalty. It was a great bill. Well, the ACLU, I believe in February, I think it was February, the ACLU came in and convinced some well-meaning conservatives that this bill needed to be amended because of what's called the Miller test. Let me explain to you really quickly what the Miller test is. This stems from a 1973 United States Supreme Court case. Really quickly, what else happened in 1973? Roe v. Wade. So just make sure we understand we're talking about the same court. So there was a case, Miller v. California. The court creates this thing called the Miller test, by which it requires local community standards to be created for defining what obscene materials are or aren't. But what they were trying to fix is that there was a guy in California that was sending mail out to people in his community advertising his obscene materials. California shut him down. He sued. And here's what the Supreme Court had a decision to make. They have the obligation to protect the public and to protect children, to protect minors from harmful material. But they also have an obligation to uphold free speech. So what the court was trying to reconcile was we need to make sure that we both protect minors and we're able to uphold free speech, a First Amendment constitutionally secured right. That's why the court devised the Miller test, so that if material is deemed obscene, it has to be done by community standards, so that we can make sure we're providing opportunity not to forgo someone's free speech, no matter how controversial or crazy we think it might be. All right, so that's what the Miller test is. But here's the important thing that I want everyone to understand. Who has constitutional rights? Persons, right? So we all hopefully understand that the Constitution secures rights to persons. Persons have constitutional liberties. Persons have God-given rights. Okay, so what is a public school? A public school is a government-created entity. It's a government entity. All right, so next question. Do governments have constitutional rights? No, they do not. Which means, do governments have free speech? No, they do not. So last question, do public schools have free speech? No, they do not. So let me make sure we all understand where we are. HB 1944 in its original form regulated the actions of public schools. Okay? We the people created a government, and we pass laws, and we tell the government what to do. That's how it works. All right? The government doesn't have free speech. It doesn't have rights. We do, and we tell them what to do. The ACLU came in and convinced conservatives that we had an obligation to protect the free speech rights of public schools, rights which they do not have. So understand that the reason we're sitting here with this amendment today, dealing with this nonsense, is because we gave up on the battlefield, we lost the argument, we gave up the argument, and we bought into the ACLU's lie, and a bunch of well-meaning conservatives came in and drafted an amendment to protect rights that public schools do not have, rights that should be secured to us and our kids. All right, so moving on now. So now we have a bill that instead of holding teachers and school administrators and librarians accountable, guess who has the burden to find these materials in the school now? Parents. So here's the way it works. The schools don't have an obligation to keep these materials out. Now you do. Your kid has to make you aware that these materials exist. You have to go complain to the school superintendent. The school superintendent has to call a school board meeting, and now the school board has to determine whether or not these materials are obscene. And if the school board determines that the materials are not obscene, guess what happens? They go back on the shelf. This is not the kind of power we want to give to school boards. So let me make a few points as I close what is going to be one of my shortest videos. School boards and school administrations right now today, I want to show you how ridiculous this is. Right now today, they have the power to pull these books off the shelf. They already have the power to pull the books off the shelf, and I'm going to prove that to you. I'm going to read you this. This was an amendment that was put on SB 1944 in the Senate. And read this. In subsection D, here's what it says. The procedures adopted pursuant to this section are not the exclusive means to remove material from a school library and do not preclude an LEA, a school operated by an LEA, or a public charter school, or the governing body of a public charter school from developing or implementing additional policies, practices, or procedures for the removal of materials from a school library. So I want to make this abundantly clear because I've been saying it, and now the newly amended bill also says it. We're all acknowledging that this bill changes nothing concerning taking books out of school. The schools can already remove these materials if they want to. So we're not creating some new thing with this bill, but here's what we are doing. For the very first time in state law, we are giving school boards the power to define what is obscene and what is not. We are giving school boards the power to define what you and I all agree to as appropriate in the culture in which we live in. May I suggest that this is not the kind of power we want to give our school boards. If you go right now to Title 49-2-203, that is our state statute, which currently defines the duties and powers of a school board, you will find that the powers of a school board are vastly and only administrative. They hire and fire superintendents. They make curriculum decisions. They contract and obligate the school's budget for building programs and the maintenance of school buildings. And they determine the tenure for teachers and the salary and budget and all these different administrative functions. School boards have no powers beyond administrative powers. This bill, HB 1944, now, for the first time, gives a school board the right to determine whether or not materials that you know are harmful to kids and we ought not be giving to minors, that maybe in their school district are just fine. No big deal. And if the school board does determine that, like they will in Shelby County and like they will in Davidson County and like they might in Hamilton County and other counties in this state, those books are going to stay in the schools. And now because the school board has said that these things are just fine, guess what? No more opportunity to penalize these people under civil penalty. No more criminal law. No more prosecuting them. They can just keep bringing the stuff into schools. That's what we're doing with this bill. And if schools can determine what is obscene, what's to keep a school in the future and us passing more bills that say, why can't schools determine what's racist and what's not? Why can't schools determine, what's gay or what's woke? We should not even be we are playing with fire, giving schools this kind of authority and school boards this kind of power. So look, here's what I'm saying. Do I want to protect our kids? Yes. Do I want to see these books removed from school? Yes. By the way, schools can remove them right now under current law. But do I want to hold these people who continue to put these materials in front of our children accountable under penalty of law? Yes. And this bill, in the long run and in various school districts across our state, fails on that measure. And it simply gives school boards powers we don't want them to have. So here's the call to action. This bill has been called off the floor in the Senate and is now being referred to the Senate Judiciary Committee. We're going to have a link with this video. You can go to capitol.tn.gov and look under the Senate, under committees, and search for the Senate Judiciary Committee. There are 9 senators, 9 members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. You need to call every one of those senators. Chairman Mike Bell, Senator Kerry Roberts, Senator Dawn White, Senator John Lundberg, Senator John Stevens, and others. And you need to tell them, vote no on SB 1944. Do not send this bill to the Senate floor for a vote. This is the wrong direction for Tennessee, and this is the wrong direction if we really want to protect our kids from these materials.